McDermott the other day, and he's actually living quite close to me in near Toronto, a little town called Brantford. He's close to, and he has quite a story to tell us tonight about the hijacking of our land registry here in the province of Ontario. Martin, can you hear me? Okay. We're having issues with connections here tonight, folks. It's very strange because before half an hour before the interview, we were chatting and everything was perfect. And all of a sudden, the connection's gone.
Now, can you hear me?
It's deteriorated quite a bit. Unfortunate, we're being messed with here. Nothing unusual on my show and many other shows I've been on lately. We're really having our internet taken from us, unfortunately. So, Martin, yeah, you're sort of cracking up, unfortunately, but let's try to get through the interview as best we can.
Okay, it'll probably come on a little bit better as it gets later.
It might, yeah. But I checked my connection, and I'm 2510 here. So, but even the sound of the commercials was very garbled. So, yeah. But I think they're going after your connection at your end. And he's not, Martin's out in the country a bit, so he doesn't have a strong internet, but it's just being messed with. That's all there is to it. Okay, so Martin, maybe you could give the listener a little bit of background about your life and kind of the things that you're interested in, what you've been doing before this, you discovered this land registry hijacking.
Okay, well, thank you, Brian. I grew up in Ontario here in a small town called Ancaster. When I was younger, I did more of an electronics, building things at a young age, and mostly vacuum tubes. And those vacuum tube amplifiers I would work on in the basement. Eventually, I did school servicing those vacuum tubes, mostly musicians, summer musicians.
Okay, well, our connection's really bad, man.
No.
Can you hear it at your end?
I'm hearing you well.
You can hear me okay?
Yeah, I'm hearing you very well.
Yeah. Well, you never know. Maybe that sometimes it actually comes across okay at the other end. But I just suggest that you speak a little slower than normal, just so if it gets garbled, people can sort of fill in the blanks.
Okay.
Okay. So you're saying how you were into electronics in your younger years.
And so then when I moved down to and I found out that I played about 40 in playing and so then I got into placer, and I didn't really started my own company, and subsequently that company has failed just in the last few years. I started that company in 1991. And serviced X-ray equipment, mostly some ultrasound, but mostly we got into pre-press printing equipment as a sideline, partner of mine and myself, and that worked out really well as well. And then I met up with Joseph Stalls. He was a builder in Vancouver, and we're friends with Hutchinson. Many people might know John Hutchinson and as well take experiments as a little pop. Those are humble. But Joseph and I, we got into it was only couple with 3 other partners, and that went well until our equipment was being used for medical purposes and not just for water filtration and water purification. And as soon as that had happened, Health Protection Canada came down on us like you would not believe and said that continue to build those things, we could put you in prison. So, you know, in Canada.
Hey, Martin, can you elaborate a bit on that? What did they say you were doing wrong?
Well, basically what had happened is we were trying to get Toronto that had bought our son out the back door, and they were selling equipment for sure, and they were making all sorts of things, all sorts of crimes of those on the street and sure pretty much everything, including. And I think as soon as they said planning, they were 8, that was when they were shot on them. And I think it was a W for a mark, store on them, and that come down. Certainly was a bit crazy as well. So those have continued to build, and the other partners saw continued to build. And I did to research in Pittsburgh and Tesla turbine technology, and that's where I got into my invention right now. But has been pretty much stopped because of my commitment to getting the land registry software fixed. So in the interim of getting this project up.
Martin, I'm getting feedback from one of the other hosts that he's listening, and he said we should probably reconnect.
Okay, let's try that.
Yeah, okay, so I'm going to drop you and try to bring you back. I'm also going to perhaps ask you to call in with your phone. We do have that ability. It usually is a less desirable way to connect, but seeing as they're messing with your internet. But let's just try, I'll just hang you up and I'll call you right back, okay?
Okay.
Let's try you on Skype first. Sorry, folks. It's one of those frustrating things. Oh, come on up. Isn't that interesting? Huh. Okay, I'm gonna have to reconnect the studio, folks. Just a sec. All right, Martin. I'm getting nothing. Martin, can you hear me?
Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Can you hear me?
Okay. It's a bit better.
Okay.
Okay, great. Sorry, folks, for the dead air. We're having some major issues with connection. We live usually I'm talking to people in England, and tonight I'm talking to someone who lives 30-minute drive away, and I can't connect with them.
Yeah. Well, there we are. How's it sound?
It's a bit better. It ain't perfect, believe me.
Okay.
But so let's just keep continuing to speak slowly, and let's go back to what were you mentioning? It was so garbled. To be honest with you, Martin, I had a hard time hearing what you were saying. You were saying something about your interest in alternative energy. Is that what you were getting into?
That's right. I've been working on several projects that translates vacuum energy into rotational energy, and that rotational energy, just in a conventional type of turbine, does generate electricity. And I've been working on this project for a good number of years now, and then I got sidetracked when I had to spend all my time decoding the electronic land registration system and how lawyers have been able to subvert all of the detective capacity of the software has in me to stop fraud. And the lawyers have been able to subvert any kind of that system that might be operative on the electronic land registration system. But it seems to me that the system is just fully open to any lawyer with a stick and a password. And it has to be fixed because people are losing their properties, and this is a major, major fraud. And unfortunately, there is no police agency equipped to routinely check when somebody calls a crime into the police department, either locally or at the OPP or at the RCMP level. They all seem to defer to something called a civil suit. And we know that that's not right.
Okay, so maybe you can share your personal experience dealing with your mother's property, and that's how you discovered this anomaly with the land registry. Maybe we should explain what the land registry is. Not everybody owns a home.
Okay, that's right. I think you're right. You go out, you save all your money, you work hard, and you have a credit check before you're going to go and buy a home. And unfortunately, that credit check might or might not be accurate, and that could affect you owning your home, especially if you owned another home that had been a victim of a mortgage fraud or a title theft and mortgage fraud. In this new system, you'd be quite surprised at what's of the capacity. But usually when you buy a home, you're looking at a real estate brochure, and you're contacting a real estate agent. And you make an offer, and that offer goes back and forth sometimes, several times. And then you make a commitment to purchase. And then there's a closing date. But in the interim of all of that, there's a piece of software that's operated, attorney on, that will be seller's attorney and the buyer, because each buyer and seller has their own attorney to present themselves adequately in this type of real estate discussion. It's hard to say that you're impartial if you're representing buyer and seller, unless you have the proper notification and declarations signed and waivers that come to with a lawyer. What we've seen today is that there are no real estate agents involved in the new land system. Neither is there any oversight, such as in the physical land registry. There is a man behind the counter. He would be a loan person.
You're really breaking up.
Yeah, he would be a regular buyer. I would be in and if I were encountered with no information and out and get sniffed out to the fraudster in the system, don't know who's paying land or receive funds from us when the rep
Martin,
yeah.
The connection's still pretty bad. It sounded okay for about a minute, and it's really starting. It's back to the condition that's really poor. I suggest we try you call in on your phone.
Okay.
I'll give you a phone number. We can just add you through that system, and then I'll drop you on the Skype. Let's see. Call this phone number. Grab your phone. I'll read it out to you.
Hold on a second.
Okay. Sorry, folks. This is about as bad a connection as I've ever had. And like I say, Martin is just down the road from me. This is unbelievable. Yeah, I've been having a lot of issues since I started my Making a Difference.tv with functionality. All of a sudden, everything just stops working at the time of my interviews. It's quite been frustrating for me. So 310, that's the area code, 421 4053.
Okay, I'll call.
Call that number, and it should come up on my screen, and then I can add you that way.
Yeah, and then I'll get myself here.
Just leave your Skype up for the minute, until I can grab you. So it's 310-421-4053. Here we go. All right, folks. Sorry for the problems tonight with the connection. It's just unbelievable. Clearly interference from some entity. This is a hot story that nobody wants people to know about. The fact that our land registry in Ontario has been hijacked, which is a very serious problem, which means that anyone who owns a home can have it taken without them even knowing it and have things leveraged against it. A whole series of problems could be occurring. I'm just waiting for my guest to come back. Let's hope we. All right, folks, I am back. We're having some major issues connecting tonight with people. My guest, Martin McDermott, had an incredible story to tell us about the fact that the land registry in the province of Ontario, which is a very important office, has had their registry sold to a private entity in Saudi Arabia, and then it was resold, I think, since then twice. And that basically means that everything here in our real estate system, our land ownership system, is at risk. I connected with another person who promised to be my backup tonight. James, are you there? Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, I'm here.
Okay. You don't need to do video,
All
but you
right.
sound great. James knows Martin. Martin had some major issues with the connection. The funny thing is it actually worked in video fine prior to the interview. And then, which often happens, although this time it was just like I couldn't get anything to work. So I'm going to have to slot you in, James, as a replacement guest.
Okay, where's Martin now?
Martin is he's at home, hopefully not too frustrated. I said, well, what we're going to do, we're going to have to tape him. This is such a controversial topic. No, but they don't want anyone to know this stuff.
Well, no, they don't. Because land registry, is a closely guarded secret because it involves huge amounts of money for a very few group of people. I mean, a very small group of people get the benefits for all of this, and the taxpayers, they call them, ends up, foot in the bill.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I'm glad you're working, and it's no. I mean, when you saw the land registry of a province or any place on earth, you're basically selling the country from under us. I mean, it could be easily manipulated. Many people who don't understand the legal system, probably like 0.01% of people understand it, can be taken advantage of. They can have their house sold from under them. They can have debts put against it. They can be used to leverage against other investments. Who knows? I mean, it really is an incredibly serious problem, and we're going to get it out to the good people of Ontario and the whole planet, because I think this is happening in other places.
Well, it definitely is. It definitely is, Brian. It definitely is happening everywhere else. It's not just Ontario.
Oh, really?
See, in the case of Martin, it's affected Martin personally, and as myself, because of a personal issue, we pushed it, and then he went on to develop the whole Ontario side of things. Myself, I went on to develop a more global attitude as to what's happening everywhere, not just one location. And I found that it's just not. I mean, when someone's given $1,000, for example, who's a very greedy person, they're not going to stop there, are they? They're going to want to get more. So when they run out of opportunities in the so-called Ontario, the corporate of Ontario, they're going to expand to the corporate of Saskatchewan, and then the corporate of, Wisconsin, and then the corporate of, someplace in England. I mean, it never ends. Where does it end? You have to end it yourself. You have to put a stop to it, or they'll just keep on gobbling it, just like locusts.
Yeah. I mean, your land is, your everything, and if they can just take your land by taking control of the registry, and then you get a call, and that's why they started this title insurance, because a lot of people were having their issues with title, so they have a thing called title insurance. So obviously the insurance companies were involved in this debacle, and I'm sure there's some connection through insurance companies, because they're benefiting from this, because people are being advised to get title insurance.
Yes.
Yeah, and that's not. And this used to be done, folks, down at the courthouse, and there used to be a clerk involved in making this transfer. Now it's being done electronically, and it's being interfered with big time
by lawyers.
Yeah.
Remember my term, not lawyer, but lawyer.
Lawyers, yeah. So let's talk a bit about who you are with the audience, because I just sort of brought you in, and I really appreciate you coming in, James. This has actually only happened once in 2 years. I actually couldn't connect with the guest, or the connection was so bad, so I tried somebody else. So I always try to have a backup, folks, in the event that things go wrong. So I'm so happy that James is around. I met James is another new friend of mine. He's is it Ojibwe?
Well, Chippewa, close enough.
Ojibwa native.
Chippewa.
Chippewa?
Chippewa, yeah.
Oh, not O. There's no O in it. Okay, Chippewa native. Sorry, I wasn't prepared for you. Chippewa native, and he's living in a very unique situation because he's a lawful expert, and he's managed to what can I say? Get outside of the legal matrix, and he's actually created some great freedoms for himself. So, where do you want to start with your story, James?
Well, first of all, freedom comes with a price, right? No man is actually free, no matter how we look at it. But basically what it was is that in 2011, after doing some research, because I moved here in 2008, August 2008, and in that period of time, I did my research.
Explain where you are. You're in Port Colbourne, that's in Ontario, on Lake Erie.
Okay. Actually, I'm in a place called Port Colbourne, which surrounds me. I'm on Turtle Island. There is no Ontario around me.
Yeah. Well, you made some moves to your status. You've corrected things, but yeah, initially you moved to a place called Port Colbourne. You're in that geographical area.
That's the reference that is given. Okay, that's what people like to call it.
Yeah.
Wrong or right, that's what they call it. See, all too often lies are told, and then they're brought into being a believable situation. Okay, so in 2011, realizing that it was unsurrendered Chippewa lands in this area still, and I was not happy with the situation of, constantly paying out to another nation for my existence. And in fact, they're supposed to be paying me. Now people think that, Indians are a burden on the Canadian taxpayer. Let me make this perfectly clear, everyone. Indians do not take money from the Canadian taxpayer. Not one dime. Not a penny. Not a farthing. As a matter of fact, the Canadian government has dipped into our funds more often than not and used it. For example, the Welland Canal over here was paid for out of Indian funds.
Really?
McGill University was built using Indian funds. The First World War was mostly financed through the Indian Trust Fund. None of these monies were ever returned to us. See, when they put together the agreements back in 1763, people say, "Oh, that's way back." Yeah, well, if you look at Schweppes, for example, you'll see that they were formed in 1789. So if they can be formed back then, they're still around today, then how come our treaties can't be? Okay, the Crown was formed how many centuries ago, and it's still around today. So that's okay then, but we can't have treaties, we can't have trusts. It's baloney. So I said, no, this is going to stop. So I fired off a document to the Governor General of the representing the Queen in the Canada. I sent off a copy to what is called the Minister of Indian Affairs, but the actual title is Sub-Trustee. The Office of the Sub-Trustee for the Indian Trust. That is the proper title. And I sent a copy off to the so-called mayor of the area of Port Colbourne, just to be cordial. In it, it tells them that I'm taking back not just title, but my underlying title, my inherent underlying title to the land as well. Now, people don't understand what that means.
Yeah, explain a bit more about that, because as a white man who came here, I can get title, but you can get something even more secure than that, right?
Well, actually, you're entitled to underlying title as well. You see, a lot of things that I found out about ourselves as Native peoples, as Indian peoples, is not unique just to ourselves. It's actually something you should be having as well.
Okay.
Right? It's supposed to be for you as well, but some people got greedy. Okay, they call them lawyers, they call them politicians, they call them banksters. Okay, the people that use money as their god. We all know about that.
Right.
So there are two levels of title. There is when you purchase a home, there is the title of the land, which in olden days was the depth of a plow. So you could plow your field and plant your crops.
Mm-hmm.
That was the depth of your title of the land. Okay, anything under that belonged to the community, or the state, or the province, whatever you want to call it. Okay, they claimed all that right. So there was minerals, water, oil, anything else, okay, that's found on the land belonged to the state, not to you. They would pay you so much to access that, to pull that out if they had to. If they could find another way to get to it without coming on your quote-unquote piece of land, they would, like a side tunnel or whatever. But you didn't own. So when you built a home with a foundation, okay, the foundation entrenched on the underlying title of the land. So the municipality, for example, or the province, or the state, could claim right, but they could only claim right over the foundation, and by then, title was at 3 feet depth. So anything under 3 feet, anything lower than 3 feet was now underlying title, not 6 inches. See, it moved. So that means that your basement basically belonged to the community, but the rest of your home should have belonged to you. But they use the logic, well, if you haven't got the basis for this, if you haven't got the foundation, then, you can't have the building. So you might as well just say the whole building belongs to us. Okay? You're allowed to stay here as long as you pay the underlying...
And that's where the mineral rights comes in, right? Because some people actually... There are some places where you actually, when you own the land, you also own the mineral rights. In some places, you don't. So you literally can have them coming under your house mining, and you have no right to any of that resource.
Correct.
Yeah.
So I fired off this document to all 3 levels there, and in response, I also said, well, look, I'll give you some money to take care of the area here as well. And I'm supposed to be receiving benefits from the trustee's office myself as an Indian. I should be receiving monies every year from that fund. Very few of us do. The ones that get the majority of it are the so-called elected chiefs. The actual Indians get nothing, which is wrong. But then again, welcome to the world of trust law and lawyers, right?
So they are giving out some of those monies to the various tribes through the band councils. Is that what they call them?
Okay, I'll get into that for a minute. Let's go back to that. Wait, hold that thought, okay?
Okay.
But the underlying title part.
Right.
Now, I gave them the money. You see, I gave them the money with that document.
Oh, okay? Yes, this is how you hooked them in. Yeah.
They accepted the document.
Why did you pay them, James?
I paid them to show a perpetuity, okay, for picking up garbage or for, cleaning the street. Okay. I'm being a nice neighbor. I didn't have to. I was just being a nice neighbor. But I said I would do it. And I did it. And I did it again the next year. And the year after that. Now I've ratified the contract. So not only under common law and Indian law, Indian being our own laws, not the one that they talk about in the courts and in Osgood Hall and such that they've contrived, our own laws of nature. Under that law, and under their form of admiralty or statute law, I've got them by the tail. Because I have a contract, and it's been ratified. They took the money and kept it.
Beautiful.
So they can't do a darn thing about it. They can yell and scream all they want, but it comes right down to it. I am the owner, not just the title, but the underlying title as well. Now, on top of that, I'm saying, okay, people, you've got these pipes going through my property. One is Enbridge Gas. One is the city waterworks. You charge people to supply them gas and such through the transportation. Well, you're trespassing on my land. I want rent. And that's basically what I'm in court with them now, with something to that effect. I want the rent, the back rent, for the years that they haven't paid.
Let's finish the issue of the title. Now, you have title to the land, and now you basically have your own little nation there, and you're called Turtle Island, Chippewa.
Well, the proper terminology, and I went through Her Majesty's Royal Mail. I didn't address this to Canada Post. I addressed it to Her Majesty's Royal Mail. Okay? Mm-hmm. But the address, 101 Elgin Street, Port Colbourne, Ontario, Canada, with the postal code, the way they write it, was not correct. Neither was the name, the all capitalized name, okay? Not correct. I am not a straw man. I'm a human being. I'm also a native, which makes even a double jeopardy on that side. I'm a human being. So write it properly, number one. The address is no longer Port Colbourne, Ontario. There is no Ontario. There was no Ontario when these treaties were made. It was over in Lower Canada.
Upper and Lower Canada. Yeah.
That's all there was. There was no Ontario, Quebec, Saskatchewan, Alberta.
No, I know. This was before Confederation in Canada.
So I'm looking at the fact, okay, well, what am I going to do? I said, okay, fine, let's name it what it's supposed to be. So I named it 101 Elgin Street, and in brackets beside that, UCL, which stands for Unsurrendered Chippewa Lands.
Love it. Unsurrendered Chippewa Lands. Oh, that's
Then,
beautiful.
Instead of Ontario, Canada, it's Turtle Island / not hyphenated, but / and Canada is in all caps, whereas Turtle Island is upper and lower case. Okay?
Mm-hmm.
And I'm stressing the fact that this is Turtle Island, but yes, I recognize that there's a corporation called Canada that shares the area with me. You see, it's not a legal statement. It's more of a gratuity type of thing. So like, well, we'll just put you in there for the heck of it. But I've often done letters just Turtle Island and no Canada, and they've gotten to me. So that information was given to Her Majesty's Royal Mail, and it was fired back to me that the changes were made, okay, and the situation was ratified.
Why didn't you just send it to the Prime Minister's office or External Affairs or something? Why didn't you send it to the Queen's Royal Mail?
Because the Royal Mail supersedes any Prime Minister.
Interesting.
The Queen supersedes. Don't forget that the Prime Minister is there simply because by grace of the Queen. Okay? They don't realize how powerful the royal family is, and well, the Crown, okay, which is the royal family and the Privy Council. I think that constitutes the Crown. So when they talk about by right of the Crown in the courtrooms, they're not talking about the Crown of Canada. Canada has no crown. The only crown that exists is England. And Canada borrows that title to say, well, by her in her right, we bring this court to action, whatever, okay? Or by right of the Queen, by right of the Crown, we recognize that, but it's always by right of. And the only one that can say that, okay, is a trustee. So in other words, Canada, its government, all its hum-to-dos are nothing better than a glorified trustee's office for England. And the people don't know it.
The trustee then is the Queen of England or the royal family?
The Crown is the executor. Excuse me. You see, if you go back in history, everything was done through the Crown of England. Okay, when they took over from Francis, that's back in the 1700s. So what happened was that when they took over, they formed a trust because they made treaties. They also made their own governments. Okay, so they did a lateral thing. They did treaties with us and government for themselves. So they're on two different fronts here, and the neither should interfere. In our canoe we stay. In your ship you stay. They didn't do that. They decided to come into our canoes and into our lands as well. But when they formed these, okay, they were the grantor. The person or the entity or the human or whatever that forms a trust is the grantor. Okay?
Okay.
Now the grantor can also be the executor if he, she, or it is alive and kicking, okay, and decides it's going to handle. That's called a live trust. All right?
Okay.
Now, when that grantor succumbs to nature, an executor is appointed. A full executor, not grantor.
You mean
the grantor is now gone.
When the grantor passes away?
That's right. Well, dies.
Yeah.
Okay? So when they die, okay, there's no more grantor. Okay? But what about the heirs of that grantor? If it is in case, for example, a king, and the king's got princesses and princes, okay? Well, they become beneficiaries of the trust. Just like we natives are beneficiaries of the trust that was set up for the Indian trust.
Right.
Okay? But because their father was the grantor and the executor of the trust, the position of executor sort of naturally falls into their lap. It doesn't have to, because at that point, all the beneficiaries come together and say, we want to get a new executor, but we never did that, you see. We never asked for a new executor or a new trustee. We just let it go with what was given to us. It was fed to us. We liked it. It was okay. We didn't bother. We just let, status quo.
But what you're saying is that the original treaty that was signed with, was it, what king signed the initial treaty back in 17?
George III.
George III. Basically his heirs picked up. They were
Yeah.
beneficiaries of that trust. Right?
They're beneficiaries. And a beneficiary can be an executor.
Right.
Okay. The trustee now is an administrator. And an administrator gets paid a fee for his, her, or their services, but they do not benefit from the trust.
Is that the prime minister now? Is he the trustee?
That's right. He is now, the prime minister's office is the trustee.
Right.
They may not change the wording or the conditions of the trust. They're doing it every friggin' day. I'm looking at it myself. Okay? I see it myself going on. But they're not supposed to do that. It's against the law. It's against trust law. So they're breaking law right now by doing what they're doing.
In the trust. Yeah, because trusts are the basic foundation of everything.
That's right. It's the basic foundation for the crowns.
Mm-hmm.
And you don't mess with the crown's money.
Mm-hmm.
And they are. But don't forget, the executor, which is also a beneficiary, gets their benefits from the Indian Trust every year. Aside from getting money from the Indian Trust every year, the Queen gets from Canada over $50 million. Did you know that?
No. I figured it was a lot more.
Her annual fee is about $50 million a year from Canada, from her loyal subjects. I have a great time when I talk to people about the First and Second World War, and I say to them, you talk about all these soldiers that died and such. And I had two uncles in the army, and I had my father was in the army. And I say to them, how many service people died in World War II? Never mind World War I, but World War II. So I'm going to ask you the same question, Brian. How many people died from Canada? How many Canadians died in World War II? How many Canadians died in World War II? I should
parking at 300,000.
We should get. I would love to take some bets on this. I just wish we could get a tally going here, or some kind of a thing where people, put in a penny type of thing, and we could raise money this way.
Well, when you say Canadian, are you saying everyone that was living that came from Canada and went to fight in this war over Europe?
Yeah.
You're not separating the Europeans landed and then the natives. You're not separating them. They're all in one.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I know I was just saw a show about this the other night that the Russians lost 20 million. The U.S. lost 450,000. So I figured Canada lost 300.
We lost none.
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 In the First World War.
And the Second World War.
None.
Not one Canadian was killed.
What?
Or injured.
Well, that's news. That's certainly contrary to the common knowledge. Yeah.
It's not common knowledge. It's common lie.
Yeah.
See that people can say, well, I'm doing a mix on words, right? But that's the basis of what they call the legal system. Finagling of words. Okay. Yes. Now, when I say not one Canadian was killed or injured or even fought in any of those wars, you think I'm a nut.
Mm-hmm. It's certainly a revised version of history.
But the fact is, the first Canadian became a Canadian in 1947. Before that, they were all British subjects. No Canadians.
Hey, that's how it works. Okay.
No Canadians. And I'll leave that to the audience to find out who the first Canadian was. They can send you an email or whatever as to find out who that was. I'm not going to see who that was. I'd be surprised to find that one out, though. It was 1947 when Canada first got its first Canadian. And you know why they did that? Because they didn't want the Jewish population that was all over Europe migrating to Canada. You believe it?
I've never heard of this before. This is
I know.
Really interesting.
I'm not talking through my hat either. It can all be verified. The internet is a great place. If you don't believe me, just go online and find it. Because it's all there.
So we went from British subjects to Canadians. There must have been some sort of proclamation or some sort of...
Canada says it has a constitution, and you got all these people all these lawyers making tons of money practicing constitutional law. And here's where the true words I use, lawyer and liar, and I merge them together to make lawyer. Okay, that's why I say it's that. That's exactly what they are. It's exactly what they do. There is no such thing as a constitutional lawyer. Why? Canada doesn't have a constitution. Canada has letters.
So you don't like Rocco Galati?
Canada has letters patent, okay, as a corporation. Yeah. Corporation of Canada has letters patents, which they purport to be a constitution. And they say, oh, but Trudeau went over to England and he got a constitution in '82. First of all, most of the people that are talking like that weren't even born in that time, or they were young. I was not that young at that age, actually.
Oh, I remember that was a big hullabaloo.
Well,
oh yeah, man.
Trudeau came back, and his purpose was to repatriate the Constitution. So my question was, how can you repatriate something that didn't exist in the first place? Because the Constitution was based on was based on the BNA Act, or the BNA, which is the British North American Act. BNA, right?
Right.
Well, BNA never passed third reading. It was never ratified.
It never passed.
It was mumbled jumbled. No, it never passed.
In England, it would have passed in England, right?
Never passed. And when Victoria died, I think she died in 1906. I think that's when she died. So did the BNA.
Wow.
So how could Canada have a constitution?
So you're saying the BNA Act ruled Canada until 1906? Are you saying? And
yep.
Then it died with Queen Victoria, and then what replaced it? Nothing.
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 And the BNA Act did not operate Canada either, because they were fighting over it. So there was no consensus. And I've got all this documented. I've got the original first page of the BNA, as a matter of fact. So it's like nothing was ratified.
Yeah, our knowledge of legal history is very woeful. It's
I'm not interested in legal history.
Nobody knows this stuff. You understand it. My friend David William has a good grasp of it. So yeah, it's not something that we're encouraged to learn.
You're dumbed down because they don't want you to know it. Do you know how many lawyers know this? And I'll tell you right now, very few.
Yeah.
I met a lawyer when I was in the Welland City provincial courthouse a couple of weeks ago. Excuse me. And there was a lawyer coming by, and I had a friend with me. He said to him, he was a lawyer, and says, "What do you wear that black robe for?" The lawyer says, "Well, it's tradition." And I go, "No, it's not." So my friend tries to interrupt. Okay, he's trying to be jovial. Okay, and I'm not jovial. When it comes to lawyers, I bury them all. I mean, Francis Bacon was right. And lawyers kill them all, type of thing. Okay. It wasn't Shakespeare.
What's 1,000 lawyers on the bottom of the ocean? A good start.
Yeah, exactly.
That's a good joke.
Or pollution. I don't want to pollute the water any more than it is. So this lawyer gives two answers. The first one is that it's tradition. The next one is that it's to respect the court. And on both those answers, I said, you know what? For a lawyer, you're pretty damn dumb. As a matter of fact, I'm going to call you stupid. You have no idea what that's for, do you? He got on the elevator and just gave me a dirty look in the door's closed as he was, trying to figure out what I was getting at. He had no clue what his robe was for.
No.
And I'm not going to give the answer to that one either. I'm going to let people research it, because it's not hard to. That one's easy to find, okay? And if I can find it, and these lawyers spend all this time and money to become part of a profession that's full of liars, and you don't even know what their lies are about, I'm telling you, it's nuts. It's really nuts. So the bottom line is contract law and money, profits. So when I finally found out that Osgood Hall is behind a lot of this, okay? And I'm talking about the office of the treasurer and the office of the CEO. Now, the CEO apparently does the daily operations with the staff of running Osgood Hall. But the one in charge of everything...
Is that in Kingston?
That's in Toronto.
Oh, in Toronto. Okay.
Yeah, York University.
Oh, really? Okay.
But the thing is, the actual person, the actual entity, I don't use the word entity here. Person is also a legal term. It's not a human being. A person includes human beings. In other words, a human being is a human being. Okay, a human being can be a person, but a person cannot be a human being. Once the person that they use in their consensus, their speaking, is a legal fiction entity.
It's the dead guy, the straw man?
The straw man. That's what they're capturing, okay? They're talking about a person can also be a corporation. Well, corporations don't live. Well, we gave it a life. Oh, okay, fine. Just like you gave a passport a life.
Are you the one who told me the straw man origin is the fact that they used to, the people who used to make the straw bricks in Egypt?
In ancient Egypt, yep.
Were
over 4,000 years ago, yeah. They talked about the fact that, they didn't use slaves to build the pyramids now, okay? There's one guy that says that they didn't use slaves, okay? They did use slaves, okay? I mean, it was there to be used. Of course, they're going to use them. And, of course, the slave meant nothing. They could drop dead and they'd just leave them in their track and not even bother burying them.
Okay, we're coming up on the break, folks. James, so we'll just go on mute, and we'll be back in about 5 minutes, folks, with more of I'm Nature and James Shanks. Welcome one and all back to I'm Nature. I'm your host, Brian Porter, and this is the time when I usually promote the station. I ask people to, I think your best way of supporting yourself and supporting the station is to subscribe to our archives. We have in the neighborhood of 80 shows running weekly or weekly on freedomslips.com, Revolution Radio. It's one of the more popular venues on the internet for accurate information on politics, economics, various spiritual pursuits, ancient wisdom, traditions, you name it. You just heard the break. You just heard the commercials. So, we got Mark calling in here. Maybe he's going to join us here, Martin.
Hi there, Jim.
Hey.
And Brian.
Martin.
How's it going? Can you hear me?
Yeah, a little bit. I can hear you. But let me just finish. I was just promoting the station here. Let me just get this finished.
Oh gosh. Okay. Hey, call out my date for Covert Reality, October 7th, for a primer.
Okay, let me just finish my promo here, Martin. Let me just finish. Okay. So,
right.
Yeah, so I really encourage people to go to the donate section on the webpage, freedomslips.com, and get the archives. You can subscribe on a yearly basis or monthly basis, $5, and you can download them at your leisure. So there we go, folks. Please support Revolution Radio, one of the best places on the web to get accurate information, not fake news. Okay, now, Martin's back. Martin came on at the first of the show, and he was just getting trounced. We could not hear him. We tried a number of methodologies to get through, but he seems to be coming through a little clearer now.
Okay, I am on live.
You are on live. Yeah.
Okay. Wonderful.
What did you do?
I don't know. I just pulled you back. I just thought maybe just you could call it out as a primer to people to learn a little bit about the Land Registry, and that was to just go to that Covert Reality on YouTube and October 7th. And that's where I was on with Chad.
Oh, yes. Okay. That's another show. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, but I'm really looking forward to bringing the real nitty-gritty details onto your show, and I think that's where, really it is going to get out there, so people really do understand that this land registry is run like a family compact, similar to what John Simcoe ran on the natives in this community here on the Grand River, and it's not much different than that.
Well, I picked up James in your absence, James Shanks.
Yeah, I heard him just a little bit, and then I got cut off.
Yeah, it's really amazing. I mean, the kind of nonsense that goes on Skype, and it's not Skype's fault. It's just interference, because you came in perfect that time. And I tried to add you twice on the phone line and the other way. It just wasn't working. So, yeah, it's kind of odd. I guess they took the heat off, or the handler off. So now we're free to discuss things. But yeah, James was saying that this issue with the land registry, in his opinion, is not an issue just in Ontario, but it's happening in many other places.
Yes, I would agree. It seems that wherever it has gone electronic, there's these organizations that show up, such as Walton International Group. And these people are the worst of the worst, because what they're doing is they're doing a con job on people over in Malaysia and Singapore and elsewhere. And they're placing these people onto the land registry in the form of private equity placement. And since the Taranak documents don't actually register any tracking of the money, you don't know whether anybody ever actually paid anything for that land to be on land title. And then they do this $2 transfer back, which is to give, again, all the property back to the attorneys that signed them up in the first place. So it really is a scam, and I think they did get shut down in a number of offices over in Singapore and Malaysia, and then had to move some to Japan, where they shut one down in Japan and moved to Malaysia or something like that. Anyhow, it doesn't end with these people, and I did find them in the offshore Panama Papers, and they directly linked to a known fraudster named Andre Zolti. And you can look these people up, and you can follow this Taranak Global Solutions into the offshore papers as well. And then you begin to understand a little bit more about how all that money flows. And I believe that it's a source for international money laundering beyond compare, because nobody is policing this company. And they came into the government contract by such a scandalous means. They utilized the intelligence of a few people, such as a rocket scientist named Dr. Philip Lapp. And when they used this guy, it gave the company credibility, even though the people behind the company were not known at all. Nobody was in the legislature or in the committee room were able to actually get any information out of anybody as to who these people were.
Martin, is there anything else? You said that there was a show on CBC about this. What year did that come out?
Yes, that came out in December of 1991, and I went in there with my cousin, and I invited the minister responsible, and I invited a bunch of other people. I was told by the CBC the most people I could bring was 3. Maybe 4. And I said, okay, well, I'd like to play in a big theater and fill it. But anyhow, because I knew what was coming out on that, because I'd already read this article by a crime reporter / journalist, investigative researcher, Paul Palango. And he published an article in the Eye Weekly, part of the Star newspaper chain. And basically, his article was who's that zip-lipped man behind Taranak, and he explained he was in the room when CBC was doing the taping of the Fifth Estate, and it was episode 2, 1991-92, and it's called The Data Game - Polaris. Now, Polaris was the piece of software that the government was already working on to basically develop a parcel map. It wasn't anything more than that. Pretty much just a parcel map, and then probably some layers within the geology and the topology and that sort of stuff. Because now there's so many data layers to our land, our Canadian soil, that you wouldn't believe how many people get access to that data and pay handsomely to get that data. But Terranet started the main data gathering, and that's why I call them a big data company more than they are a land registry company. But when Real Data came out, they had no workforce, they didn't have any capital, there was no track record at all, they only had one signature on the bid, and the other major companies that said they would get involved would only get involved if Real Data Ontario won the contract. And so how they won the contract is they brought the rocket scientists in the room. And this was the story here of the CBC. Quite a story, but it does tell all the names, but it doesn't tell one name. There was one name that is missing in this list of names, and there was a name that I heard while it was playing. And I was writing down names, and then the CBC employee, I'd asked him if he wouldn't mind if I could just take a few screenshots because, I just can't write this fast. And so we're settling back and forth, and he allowed me to take some screenshots. And so I'm the only person who ever got enough information of this company because I got into the TerranetClassAction.com papers. And in those documents, you'll find some affidavits.
Martin, can I just ask a quick question about this show?
Yeah.
It was a two-series show, like it was like 2 hours of.
It was an episode on the Fifth Estate, and it aired in December of 1991, and it was basically I can read the story. It says the Fifth Estate investigates a company called Real Data Ontario. It's a private company working with the Ontario government that will run a computerized land and property information database called Polaris. Real Data will not only have access to personal information, but a mandate to package and sell that information for profit. Critics claim this is a huge encroachment on privacy and not in the public interest. The provincial government had two companies vying for this business. A large consortium called FinTech tried to get the contract, but the new venture and smaller group, Real Data, ended up with the deal. Real Data received some financing from Saudi investors, while the government wanted much of the investment to come from Canada. The deal was set up with the previous Liberal government, but it was the new NDP government that finalized it. Real Data has since changed its name to Terranet, and both sides agreed to keep the master agreement secret forever. With the computerization and privatization, many small land registry offices are being closed, and lawsuits are being launched. And some communities are refusing to join the project, fearing privacy will be sacrificed. An investigation into the bidding process has been started by the Ontario Provincial Police. Seen and heard are Philip Lapp, businessman, Real Data, Peter Cormos, provincial minister, Helmut Pilar, a surveyor, Pam Ross, analyst, David Brosengard, analyst, Ron Adams, real estate agent, lobbyist, Fred Kazravi, lobbyist, Jim Linders, former member of Real Data, Don Mitchell, FinTech official, Art Daniels, government official, and somebody in Ron Leggett, Ontario Registry System. And then there's a couple of other names, but the one that really does stick on is this guy, Art Daniels. Now, he was the guy who was working for the government, but he clearly was not working for the government, in my opinion, because he seemed very, very obstructing and defensive. And every statement that I've ever read that he made in all of the committee meetings and in any other of those meetings where he was referred to as well.
Martin, did you ever get a chance to talk to any of these people?
No, I have not. And this is it. I've been more interested in tracking the people who are responsible right now for fixing the system. And those are the people that I'm more interested in getting to, and that is the Chief Legal Officer of TerraNet, Agostino Russo. And then there's the other guy now who I had to go above Agostino Russo because he seems to be the guy who's running the show there at TerraNet. And he had my application to the Land Titles Assurance Fund that was shipped to him by the Director of Land Titles, Jeffrey Lem. And he received it, and then he...
What did you send him? Sorry, it didn't come through. Yeah, it was a bit garbled. What did you send?
Oh, okay. Yeah, he basically sent my application for the Land Titles Assurance Fund. Now, if you lose a piece of property and it's affected your ability to acquire that within an estate, you've lost an interest in an estate. And that's how the legislation reads, and it's part of the Consumer Protection Act passed in 2006. And so anyhow, as I made the application for that, I was blown out the door because I wasn't the executor. And so I said, well, it's not about that. It's about your feeble software, and it doesn't stop criminals while they're at the keyboard. So send it off to the attorney at TerraNet, and I'm going to have a discussion with him about it.
Is it still called TerraNet, this organization that's stealing houses?
Yes, that's right. It allows people to steal houses directly from the land registry, and it's just a password and a stick called a USB drive, and that's all it is. And so, how they got the deal is one thing, you see. But I'm looking at documents, and I'm seeing that all of the money came from Saudi Arabia, and all of it was available on what was called a contingency basis. And so you realize that the fellow who actually brought all these people together is not listed in any documents, but you can find him online as a co-founder, claiming that he's a co-founder of TerraNet. And his name is let's see, what was his name? Terry Popovich. Terry Popovich. Now, if you look up this guy, you'll find that he went on to create another big data company and a very, very intrusive design of software that works with RFID planting on people. It's a very, very strange scheme that he came up with. But you realize that all of these people, after TerraNet got absorbed by OMERS, they left and they all started their own companies in big data. And I'm quite surprised that it was never identified that this fellow, the Saudi Arabian, Mohammed Al-Zaibak, should have really never been in that land registry office making this kind of a deal with that kind of a share structure and 7,000 shares going amiss in 2 different documents that I found that are connected to the Terry Popovich. And so I'm going to bring this up eventually to the right financial investigators, but they don't answer the phone at the RCMP when you call them.
Wow. So we should ask James for a comment on all this, because he's been so kind as to pick up the ball for you and take it down. So, James, do you have anything to say about this controversy?
Well, the thing is that Martin's got the whole enchilada right there. He's got the names, he's got the dates. He's done the homework. There's nothing much more to add to it. I mean, you know, when a person's been that thorough and he goes back to 1991 on one issue, he's researched it forward, backward, and inside out. All I think he needs to have now is for people to get out there and support it. I mean, in many ways. Right now, he's got a few of us that are friends with him as such, but we are not enough to go against this megalithic type of affront that he's up against. And it's not just him; it's every homeowner in the area called the Canada or in Canada. In our case, in the Aboriginal world, we think we're safe on reservations. We're not. Reservations are a farce. They simply want to eliminate as many Indians as they can, and then eliminate the reservations altogether. eliminate the trust fund. I mean, it's like the idea of the one world order. Okay, well, get behind the people because that's what's happening. It's banksterism. Again, Martin's fight again is with banks. Believe it or not, that's what it all comes down to. And we need to. He has to tell people, look at this is what I need from a group of people. I need some people to do this, some people to do that, and then allocate those responsibilities and have it done.
Because let me just ask him, James. Have you resolved this problem with your with your mother's estate or mother's home? Martin.
Oh, yeah, me. Oh, okay. Well, this is the most remarkable thing is that I've been very vocal about it. I chased the suspect around because I was, through my investigation, able to figure out who was at the keyboard conveying my mother's land title. And that's where it all started, you see. When somebody goes onto a computer system and steals something from a man's mother, and that man happens to be a database developer and had built computer systems as far back as 1987, you kind of realize, okay, that was the wrong victim to pick, you see. And but anyhow, I assessed through my skills the ability to actually identify the person who was at that keyboard. And I say it was MP Philomena Tassi, Liberal Party. And her husband was the one who's connected to the password. He's an attorney, but he is not a real estate attorney. He's one of these commercial attorneys that heard you can get a password to the Ontario Land Registry. And you don't have to be a real estate lawyer. You don't have to go through any courses. You don't have to have any training. You get the password, you get the manual, and you get to figure it out yourself because he left one document in the system behind for a $130,000 attempted transfer. And then the transfer that finally did go through was 1 month later at $140,000. And so when I printed off these documents initially, that one document printed off the $130,000 document. And then when I went back and I printed off another bunch of documents and I hit to print it off again, that document didn't print. And so when I confronted the attorney of town, Agostino Russo, I said, well, why didn't that document print? And he says, well, I started stuttering and stammering. And they said, well, hold on. Yeah, it was in there. And it was in there by the attorney who was registered to the password or his friends or whoever was at the keyboard. But he tells me that what CARNet does is they go back into the system and they, quote, clean up the unfinished business left behind by lawyers, unquote. And when he told me that, I just said, clean up. I said, that's delete. And then he got all flustered me since it's not called deleting. I said, okay, stop it, And, but anyhow, we've had many words back and forth, but he never seems to answer anything. And he keeps saying that we don't have any evidence. And there was a gentleman that I got some evidence from the other night, and I won't speak to it because he said, please don't speak to it yet because I've got to get some more preparation. And I said, no, you really don't. You've got everything here. And he's an experienced real estate agent, 85 years old. When this system went digital, somebody who he had sold a farm to of 300 acres had their farm stolen. And they're an Irish immigrant family. And they were isolated just like everybody gets isolated in this system because we're told it's a civil suit. And it was just a bunch of fraudulently filed papers and this hocus-pocus software running the land registry that helps. And because of that, these people lost their farm. He got back on a plane, went back to Southern Ireland.
Okay, Martin, I want you to stop for a second because you've gone off, and I.
Oh yeah, I could tell you forever.
Did Did you resolve
Oh, okay.
the issue of your
No.
mother's land transfer?
No, the estate is still open, and it was never closed because of this outstanding issue.
How long has it
And
been open?
since 2008.
Wow.
You see, and this is what they do. These lawyers come in. The first lawyer that came in, okay, after the password of James W. Oliver, then comes in this Jim Sweetlove. And I looked up and researched him when they hired this guy, and I found that he was one of the greatest stonewallers in the city of Hamilton. And so you realize that these people will try and bleed you to death. They will work against you, in any way, manner, shape, or form. And in this case, my brother-in-law, who received the property, received it from a chaplain at a keyboard with her husband's password, and he's a religion teacher. You see? That's the crime of this, is that he's a religion teacher. He got duped. He fell for it. They went in and took a mortgage on my mother's house, and before you know it, she's in a hospital bed needing her money. You see? What do you do about that?
Somebody put a mortgage against your mom's house without her.
That's right. As soon as your title is transferred, that electronic land title number, as soon as that gets transferred to the new buyer, you see, and it's done criminally, it's gone. And you can't go into a bank and get a credit line. You can't go into a bank and get any sort of capital on that property. You can't do anything. You've got no money. You've lost everything from that land title number. And the remarkable thing is that this Canada company has had no standards applied to it by the Canada Standards Council or CSA or any of these people. You see, we have no standards in their software.
It's the most fundamental thing in the world, a land registry, and there's nobody who's accountable for it.
Nobody.
That's unbelievable.
No, and this law society will stonewall you till, what do they say, kingdom come? Who knows?
Unbelievable. So you have gone up many avenues. You've reported this to various police departments, and they've all said that they can do nothing to help you.
And yes, that's right. And the worst thing is that, and the real mind screw of this is that OMERS owns this land registry now.
Explain
they bought
what
the
OMERS
company.
is. Explain what OMERS
Okay,
is.
OMERS is the Ontario Municipal Employees Retirement System. Now, that's the fund that police officers pay into. That's the fund the firefighters pay into. That's all the municipal workers that are behind the desks and doing all those clerical things. All of those people who are working in any municipal capacity and many other pension funds are tied into this. And that's what happens is that these people have their money in OMERS, Ontario Municipal Employee Retirement System. And it's run by a guy named John Ruffalo. And John Ruffalo is, being the CEO, was the next on my list after Agostino Russo, the chief legal officer and secretary of the board of Taranet.
Did you not tell me that OMERS sold? They used to own this land trust service?
Nope.
They sold it?
Nope. They owned a portion of it, and then they bought all of it, I understand, and then they put it into a holding company kind of thing, like an intermediary called Borealis Infrastructure. And it's actually in Borealis Infrastructure where they have a lot of good bad investments. And they've been losing money, and this is why I'm telling the police, you guys got to get onto your investment managers and figure out where your pensions are going. Because if this OMER is now owning Taranet, and if we get a ministerial audit on it, it might be $2.5 billion that OMERS might have to pay for, because we don't know if it were audited who has to pay for the deficit. Of people having lost their homes, getting those things corrected. before those people show up at the hospital.
Mm.
You see, that's what we've got to do, is we have to get that data corrected, because there's a lot of attorneys that have got in there, and you don't discover this kind of a crime until many years later. The crime happened 1.5 years before my mother was in the hospital room. Now, this other crime that happened on this Irish family was about 1.5 years before they discovered that a transfer had illegally occurred.
So you're talking about another instance of another crime that you...
Yes,
of.
yes. And,
is there a support group for these people in Ontario?
Well, that's a good question. I think that's probably going to happen if people were to start thinking, gee, you mean like everything got banked into a land banking software? Yes, it's actually land banking software over in Malaysia and Singapore. But here, we call it a land registry. But since everybody's property went into this bank software, we all have to once in a while check our bank account and make sure that we still own our property. Because if you don't have a mortgage on your property or a lien on your property, it's that much more open to fraudsters as they review the shopping list of the data that they get freely from Teranet.
Well, they may have a way of knowing if you have any heirs to your estate. And if you don't, and there's nobody who would be eligible for your home, and when you passed away, there's no estate to pass on, that they may be targeting these people because they're prime targets. Because some people don't even have a will. I mean, there's a lot of issues with people in the legality. A lot of people don't have wills when they do.
Brian, somebody like yourself, see, you're forward-thinking. You see, I'm forward-thinking as well. A lot of people aren't forward-thinking, like OPP, when I've been in discussions with them. They're not forward-thinking enough that this is their pensions, that this John Ruffalo is spending their money now out in Waterloo, and he's throwing money at these guys that were blow on some BlackBerry, you see. And you don't put your money into losers' pockets, typically, but, they won't police their own funds, much less know how to get a piece of software from Teranet so they can police the land registry.
Yeah,
and they're responsible.
It's beyond belief that something so fundamental would not have very strict rules, accountability, places to go, people to talk to, in the event that something goes wrong. Now, what is this title insurance supposed to do that they're recommending?
Well, well, there's your next fraud on the people. First, you put your land into a title-based registry, and then you sell people insurance to protect that title. You see, make it vulnerable first, and then give people a reason why they need to buy title insurance. You see? And you don't, what title insurance does exactly is it pays for the attorneys to correct any deficit or defects in your title. And that's what you're supposed to do, is just do that. Nothing more than that. Just do the research and correct the problems that had happened to a fraudster.
Well, it sounds to me like it's not easy to fix it. If you've been trying for 8 years to fix your mother's situation, it's not an easy thing to fix, even if you are an attorney.
Okay, well, I'll tell you, the first problem that people have when this happens, because it's such a disgusting crime, and it often involves several lawyers that work in concert to create the crime. And because these lawyers are part of big firms, nobody will go after them. You see, you won't find a lawyer who's willing to go after these people. And what they do is they tell the beneficiaries of estates, it's going to cost you $40,000 or more pretty much up front, to get after, like they start down that path. And before you know it, you're paying a lot to lawyers just to get the other lawyers to respond with any documents they may have or don't have. And
gentlemen,
Yeah.
This is where the idea of the underlying title comes in. Okay, as an Indian, Okay, it's already automatic that it's part of our heritage or inherent right. But Canadians are also entitled to underlying title to that they own the land. If you have a mortgage,
he's right. That's right.
So if you have underlying title, they can't do anything. You don't need title insurance. You don't need lawyers because you own the whole enchilada. Period. It's finished. It's over.
They can't commit this type of fraud against you in your situation there, James?
Nope. They find themselves the wrong end of a bow and arrow.
The wrong end of a what?
Bow and arrow.
Bow and arrow.
Well, I'm just looking at the numbers of people now that are aware of this problem. You see, my count on that YouTube video of Covert Reality on October 7th, that has continued to climb. And it continues to climb by invitation. And this is what I've told these people. It's not just people haphazardly coming across that. It's people that I have contacted in Parliament or in the committees or in the legislature, and then all these other lawyers that were party to this in the Law Society and elsewhere. And so I've been careful actually sending it out as an invitation to each level, and especially into the OMERS camp, because OMERS is going to have to fix this. And that's why I focus on John Ruffalo, because he claims to be part of this maker movement. And I'm an inventor, and I've been making things for a lot of years, like I was saying, the ozone therapy and my vacuum implosion alternator, and I also had a high-speed rotor.
I don't think too many people heard what you said earlier.
Oh, okay. Yeah. So anyhow, I was saying that I'd worked a lot on different things, and then there's this John Ruffalo who's claiming to be an inspiration in this maker movement for an organization out in Kitchener called Communitech. And on Communitech, their founders in that were these people who are effectively the blow-ons from BlackBerry. You know, the people who have lost BlackBerry a lot of equity in their investments and technologies and that. But long story short is that I went up there to Kitchener-Waterloo to look at this Communitech in this open house. And I didn't see them doing anything special, you see. So if you're not doing anything original in today's world, you're not going to be at the leading edge of anything, you see. Technologies are moving too fast. And if you're not there at the front edge, where you're actually creating something new and innovative, you're just repeating what somebody else has done. And that's all I saw up there. I didn't see much. And I'm still waiting for his phone call. Many, many communications to John Ruffalo, and he still won't respond. And neither will Philomena Tassi, neither will her husband, neither will Dave Levac, neither will Marie-France Lalonde, the Minister responsible, Consumer and Corporate Services. And then there's this Anna Ram in the Ministry of Government Consumer Services or Government Services, whether they keep changing the names. And there's all these people who are responsible at various different layers and levels. And the question still is, who is policing the approval protocols of how Terranet is allowed to use data, and who is checking what's called the value-added products? The very thing of the data that they deliver and how those products are packaged. They have never applied for a single protocol. That's what I think. They slipped under the radar. It fell off the sheet of anybody who was supposed to be supervising this company. And now our data is all over the world. And we've got people in the Land Registry office that are complicit in this thing as well. That's Jeffrey Lamb and Jan Robertson. These people who have all been through, and they've received my emails, and they understand I'm not stopping. I'm going to get this software fixed.
Do we still have a physical land title office, or has that been phased out?
Phased out.
What you have now is you go into the front of the land registry office, and there are no more files. There's a couple of computer terminals here in Brantford, and you go in there, and if you're not computer literate, you can always ask somebody to come and help you. But if they come and help you, and if they're snotty or anything like that, you report them, okay? Because this is what I'm finding. People have said that when they've gone to check these land titles, that they don't get the help to understand the system. See? And now you've got old people who are curious, and they're not even getting the help on how to work a computer because they don't work computers.
No, oh God, I mean, that would be way beyond their capacity. Okay, James, what would you want to say?
Okay, no, we talk about the computer terminals around. Okay, it's called Services Ontario. Those are the outlets that have the computers for land registry observation or for checking. And there's
Service Ontario.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
That's who handles that.
Yeah, it's part of Services Ontario, but you don't see Terranet written on any of the documents, but they're the company behind the documents. And the data, one, is not secure. Secondly, it's not reliable.
Well, let me tell you something else. Services Ontario runs another thing, and it's this fine system for non-paid parking tickets. They're also in charge of reissuing our licenses, both for the wallet and for your car. I bought a car back in about 4 or 5 years ago. I had paid some fines like 10 years before that. Somehow, and I'd renewed my license like 2 or 3 times since that had happened, okay? Somehow, when they went to buy the car, the dealer, and get the plates, these fines showed up that I'd paid like 10 years ago. So I had to pay the fine again to buy the car. I couldn't freaking believe it. They'd been paid like 10 years previous.
And we talk
I
about
cannot friggin' believe it. And of course, I had no receipt that I'd paid them because it was such a long time ago. But I said to the guy I bought the car from, I said, that's unfriggin' real. I mean, I paid those fines. How did they show up again?
Well,
no, you're right.
These systems,
that's crazy, isn't it?
These systems are loathed. They're just criminal, is what they are.
Brian, you can do another show on that another time, okay? But that's where the MCO comes in. If you had maintained the MCO, you could buy that automobile without anything attached to it.
Yeah, the MCO, yes. The what's it called? What does that mean again?
Manufacturer's Certificate of Origin.
Yes.
If dealer had given you that, okay, then you could walk out of the showroom with your car.
Yeah, at that point, I had no idea about the MCO.
Nobody does.
You and David William know about it, and there are probably about 50 people in the U.S., his friends. Do you know about the MCO?
No, just from Jim when he's spoken of before. Jim has been a wealth of information because he's actually been another piece of this puzzle, you see, that I'm putting together, and that is how did this government ever come to acquire native land, for one, and then set up these infrastructures to tell us that we've got to pay for it ad nauseum forever, even though our ancestors paid for most of that infrastructure. So we keep on paying for something that we're calling maintenance, and we're not getting any maintenance because here I am out in the country. I don't have sewers. I don't have water pipe. I don't have gas pipe. I don't have streetlights. I don't have sidewalks. I don't have curbs, you see. So I don't have anything other than garbage pickup and mail delivery, you see. Oh, and snowplow, you see. So why would I pay such a disproportionate
Well, mail delivery is a joke because it's just a bunch of flyers. I mean, that's a service.
Well, that's right.
You could
and they're trying to do away with that.
You could pay a guy to plow the road a lot cheaper than the taxes you're paying. I guess you could say fire, but I mean, firefighters basically sit around and do very little. I know a lot of them, and they'll admit to it.
Well, that's, but there is the people.
A firefighter. She said in 2 years she went to 2 fires. In 1 year she went to 2 fires.
Mm-hmm. But at the same time, my father was a volunteer firefighter in Lancaster, and so I recognized, that these guys were the first responders.
Well, volunteer is good. I like volunteer. I don't like having to pay for it because they don't.
Yeah, that's right.
I mean, they're highly trained people. Now they do actually respond to a lot of car accidents. That's basically.
Yes, that's right. Yeah.
Yeah, they're another form of emergency worker. But they don't really do anything. Have hardly anything to do with fires anymore because they don't have. Yeah.
Oh, true. I mean, the day's going to come where all these building codes for new houses are going to come with sprinklers. Even though you don't need it.
And
that's the way regulations go, right?
The detection systems are good now. So you have just a little whiff and they go off and. Yeah. So, we've gotten pretty good at preventing fires. I mean, that's one thing I'll say they have pretty much licked.
I think so.
Yeah. So a lot of these government services are only there just because people like to have the nice cushy jobs and the big pays and the pension and,
And they're not trying to take your land from you either.
Well, the big issue is that, we got this other crime that's happening, and that's called MPAC. That's called the Municipal Property Assessment Corporation.
Oh, yes.
Now, that's the other arm of this taxation scheme, and every 4 years, they hit a button, and in comes the data from Terranet. And Terranet's data says your house is worth that much more now, so we're going to tax you more. Well, it's not. I'm not selling my house. It's not for sale. You see, but they assess your taxes based on a value of sometimes, like what's happening in my area, is the farmland value frauds that are happening. And so when the Canada hits the button, we've got a lot of artificial or synthetic value increases on our land. And we shouldn't be paying additional taxes for that. But I wish people could wake up and identify that that's a crime against all of us by anybody who does the value fraud that Walton International does, that I caught in the Terranet papers. But if you take it to the OPP, they don't even know how to look at it. And I say, well, these are your land registry papers. You see? That's how silly they are. You see?
Yeah.
It's silly that they can't look at black and white and say, oh, yeah, property doesn't go from $1,008,000 to $38,000 to $4,006,000 in 6 months' time. You see, but that's one of the examples. And they have 5,000 and some acres here in Brant County, that one company. And again, I found in the Panama Papers linked to a criminal that put some people behind bars in America. You're doing the same thing here.
Well, just in general, everything's gotten so complicated, almost nobody can figure it out anymore. And we take advantage of that. And people, I'd have a hard time dealing with this kind of stuff, let alone a 90-year-old woman who doesn't even know how to use a computer. My mother couldn't ever deal with something like this. At least
that's right. And that's why they need people like us.
Yeah, well... the other option, I like James's solution. Just get out of this friggin' criminal system. Get out of it.
This is where I wish a lot of my own peoples. Don't forget, Indians are not all the same nation, right? We're different nations, but peoples in general, all the Indian peoples who are not on reservations, okay, who own their own piece of land, take it back completely, okay, and then from there, show Canadians how they can do it as well, and have it grow that way.
Exactly. And pick what government services you want to support and have it as a set fee, and that's that fee can be reviewed once in a while, but it's a set fee and it won't go up like our property valuations do.
Because if it goes up, you have the option of keeping it or putting out for tender for somebody else to do it.
That's right. That's right.
It sounds ridiculous, but it's not, okay? It's actually the right thing. What's ridiculous is that we've lived this way for so long that people have become comfortable. It reminds me of that movie, The Matrix. Some prefer to stay in this sleep state rather than be woken up into the reality.
Yeah, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And unfortunately, that's the same thing as what's happening now. Many people would rather stay asleep, say, well, we know something's wrong, but we can't do anything about it. So we'll just keep doing what we're doing. We'll complain, but that's as far as it goes. We'll protest. They thought that, for example, Standing Rock, okay, down south in the Dakotas, they figured, well, that protest will last maybe 2-3 weeks. But when it went on for 2 or 3 months, they realized it wasn't going away. They had to address it. Because most protests are a weekend or a few days, and then they're gone, and it's forgotten about, and it's status quo again. Martin has raised his issues now many, many times. How often can one person keep going? Now, if these people, like, for example, I'd love to be able to talk with the guys from Anonymous and start inundating these people's emails and everything else with this information. All these people he's talking about. Start taking down their sites.
And, well, this is the interesting thing about Standing Rock as well, is that this is one of these first larger protests where a supply chain has been established. So these people will constantly have fresh supplies, and more people will be coming in, especially as more and more supplies and more people are needed. You see, so I think this one is something that's more remarkable in all of the protests that I've ever seen. Is this Standing Rock? This one's standing out above all the other ones.
CNN showed up with a truck, so I expect things are going to escalate. Yeah.
Yeah, they're bringing their own armed escorts,
and they're bringing their own ambulances. I mean, like, the people are bringing medical supplies. They're getting ready. Okay, and this is the important thing: is that people are getting ready to treat the wounded.
Oh no, yeah, it's very well organized there. They're
very well organized.
An amazing job. I wish they did extend it to the other issues that we're dealing with, but I have to give them credit for hanging in there. I mean, they're doing one hell of a job of standing up to the brutality.
Ryan, if they stand up to the brutality of the oil barons, as they call themselves, okay, are the ones that pump money into everything else. So forget, who owns all the oil in the States?
Who owns it?
Yeah.
Well, probably the native people.
Who's got the bank account for all the oil in the States?
The Crown?
Yeah.
No, Rockefeller.
Oh, Rockefeller.
Who does Rockefeller report to? Rothschilds.
Rothschild, yeah.
The Rothschilds, the private banking sector of the Vatican Bank.
Yeah.
Bingo. All roads point to Rome. In this case, to the Vatican.
And they have their minor tentacles that are constantly weaving their way into the very social fabric of our society, and we don't even know it.
Exactly.
And the worst case of that I found in Hamilton and in Toronto and in Ottawa is this red mass. The red mass is the strangest thing. You can go look it up.
Okay.
It's a